Hello, I'm SkyBolt. I ponify it so you don't have to. Sorry, I don't have the same kind of hat. Okay, much better. Sorry this is coming out so late, but I've been out of state 4 times in the last couple of months, and 2 of those times were for pony conventions, so yeah. And since everything seemed to time out perfectly, I figured why not roll everything together into my 2-year anniversary video. So everyone pour up a drink for a nice fireside chat. Let's get to know each other a bit. Everfree Northwest was a ton of fun this year. Most of you probably remember me from the Stable Tech Studios panel that I ran, that you can watch here. Or if you want to see me doing a ton of my Eric Cartman voice, you can watch me on the Cutie Marks of Voice Acting panel that Ponyville Live posted.
I hate you so much, Kyle.
Finally, I did perform my Clint Eastwood parody, The Bad and the Ugly, at Ponystock as well during Dapperjack's set, but unfortunately I haven't been able to locate video of it yet. So either when Ponyville Live posts it, or I find video of it somewhere else, I'll be sure to share it with everyone. Overall, I got to enjoy a bunch of pastel-colored tomfoolery, with friends that I don't get to see often enough in person. BronyCon was great too. It was my first time at that convention, and even though I wasn't really presenting or anything, it was a ton of fun. Interestingly enough, being the only convention I drove to this summer besides flying, the Baltimore Convention Center looked like an airport terminal. Go figure. It was great meeting up with some friends there for the first time, and bumping into some horse-famous celebrities, including Mr. Horse-Famous himself, Mando Pony. Plus, I even got Daniel Lindgren to sign my SkyBolt logo shirt, which was pretty cool. The next thing I need to mention is a special commission that I finally got in the mail 2 months ago. Those of you who follow me on Facebook or Twitter already know what this is, but it still deserves mentioning. This incredible sculpture artist, Devil's Reject 493, made a model of one of my favorite statuettes from Fallout Equestria, the animated series. And you can probably guess which one it is. The Be Strong statuette of Applejack. He put a lot of quality work into this. I was able to talk to him about the commission after we interviewed him on an episode of Lunar Echoes podcast. And she encourages me to be strong when I just can't find a certain harmony. Say f*** it! So I encourage all of you to go to his DeviantArt page and throw money at him right now. Okay? Now to get on with the main point of the video. Since this is the 2,000 subscriber Q&A, and also my 2-year anniversary show, it's a little bit of one-on-one time. You guys sent in some really good questions actually, and you deserve answers. First question, boxers or briefs? We're getting really personal right off the bat, aren't we? Both. Twilight with wings or without? For me, it's always been Unicorn Twilight, personally. I just like her better that way. I like where they're going with some of the princess storylines and such, but I guess I'm biased. I just like those nostalgic moments from Season 1 when you realize you're a college dude watching the newest incarnation of My Little Pony. But at least I make a lot of money, so I guess it levels out. Would you go to Sombra's Taco Shack? Being from California, I would never turn down Mexican food. However, I did hear that his operation was just a front to sell crystal meth, so I'd rather go to some other Mexican restaurant that's a front for a marijuana operation. That's the American way. Who would win in a fight, SkyBolt or AJ? Well, first off, SkyBolt would not hit a girl. And it'd probably be AJ anyway. Who is... Oh, wait a second, this is Anna. Who is your favorite princess in MLP? Well, regardless of the fact that I've already knocked Twilight off the list, it would obviously be Luna. I mean, come on, she's the obvious choice. She's awesome, and everyone knows it. She's more relatable, more complex, has the better backstory, she's voiced by Tabitha St. Germain, who, I'm pretty sure, is always on drugs. Just from listening to her in interviews, she sounds like she's always on some higher plane of existence. Which of course makes her one of the most enjoyable VAs to watch on stage. At conventions, she is hilarious. Definitely look for her. And of course is very nice and fun as well. But going back to Luna, she also has by far the best songs from the fandom. Luna, won't you cry for me? I'm as lonely as I've ever been. I am forced back into the stars. Is there any way to fix a broken heart? Yeah. What's your favorite episode? See, for me, this has always been one of those tough questions, because it really breaks down to what a person likes in the show. For me, I connect most with the stories, the relationships, and the music, so I guess it would also play on my nostalgia a little bit to say that it would be the best night ever. After those first magical moments and watching Season 1, Best Night Ever was a really good payoff, and I think one of the best morals of any of the episodes from the series. So, yeah.
Favorite type of chocolate and favorite type of cake?
I like pretty much any kind of chocolate, but if I had to pick a favorite, I'd probably say the Ghirardelli squares, a San Francisco treat. Favorite kind of cake, on the other hand, is much more specific. See, when I was back in high school, this one friend of mine had her sweet 16 birthday party, and she had this coffee ice cream cake. It's from Baskin-Robbins, and it's called Jamocha Almond Fudge, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's coffee Jamocha ice cream cake with almond slices and fudge mixed into it. I always get one of those with vanilla icing and then chocolate cake. And I've had that for about 4 or 5 birthdays now, and it's so good. So good, really.
Would you rather have no voice or no arms?
Well, that's a rather dark question, but it is a good one. I guess, as hard as it would be, I'd probably go with no voice. Because even though it'd mean losing my voice acting aspirations and singing aspirations, I could still be musical with instruments and musical programming, and I could still write lyrics, even though I couldn't really sing demos, but I could still write lyrics. I could still write, period, without having to go with some kind of computer interface, like, you know, like ask Siri to ghostwrite the novel for me, I guess. Although at this point there's plenty of great softwares for voice to text, but without arms I'd lose the ability to do most jobs, including engineering, which is what I went to school for and which is what I've been doing for the last 7 years. It's what I love. How tall are you? I guess you're referencing those 2 pictures from the question video with Dusty Cat, AC Race Best, and Mysterious Brony. I'm 6'1" barefoot, and then with shoes or boots on, it goes up from there, so it is nice being the tallest in my family, absolutely. How did you first make contact with MLP and join the fandom? Well, that is an interesting story. Basically, back in the summer of 2011, I was passing the time between summer classes and homework by going on to memebase.com just for silly memes to decompress after a long day, etc. Then on the website's main page, I saw a meme of a pink, straight-haired pony with the caption, "Because Cupcakes." Yes, my first introduction to Generation 4 was a Cupcakes meme. Talk about setting the tone. But I didn't really think anything of it at first. It wasn't until I was listening to Rooster Teeth podcast number 127, where Michael Ragequit Jones was talking about how there was this group of non-little girls watching the newest episodes of My Little Pony, and how he was actually a pretty big fan himself. That got me pretty curious, and so then I started doing a little bit more research. So I went onto the Know Your Meme site and watched the video that they had just released about it. After watching it, it prompted me to watch the first episode. Then I watched the second, because it was a 2-parter. Then I watched the third. Then I watched the fourth. And then I'd shotgunned all of Season 1 in a weekend. Then I questioned my sanity. But I wasn't really involved with the fandom at that point. I started watching Season 2 as the episodes aired and reading the memes which had now been segregated off to their own site, My Little Brony, and generally that was it. It wasn't until the holidays during a break of episodes when I decided to finally check out this Equestria Daily site that everyone had been mentioning. And from there I started checking out the fan art, PMVs, fan music, fanfics, and etc. So I guess January of 2012 is when I actually joined the fandom. How long does it take for you to write lyrics and come up with a song? That can vary quite drastically. Sometimes I'll come up with the idea of a song, but then not get the lyrics done until maybe a week or so of toying around with some different options. In terms of actual time spent, I'd probably say it's between 2 and 6 hours, depending on the length of the song. On the shorter end of the spectrum are songs like 99 Problems, where a lot of repetition happens, whereas on the longer side of the spectrum are songs that are, say, rap numbers like The Bad and the Ugly, or just tons of lyrics like Lament for Queen Chrysalis.
3 hours later.
You see, I personally put a lot of effort into the lyrics I write because I want to write a story, essentially. In fact, in almost all of the songs I make, there's a 3-act story structure going on in one way or another. And in fact, you'll find it very rare that I make any 2 choruses the same either. I try to shy away from repetition of choruses. I'll try to repeat, like, themes and common structures for the choruses, obviously, besides the musical tone. But, like, lyrical or, like, writing themes in the choruses. But the actual words I'll try to change up, more or less. Take Facing the Fallout, for example, where the only lyrics that are the same between any 2 choruses are facing the fallout, facing the fallout. Otherwise, it's just an opportunity to, again, advance the story in one way or another. That song especially was supposed to be just basically an overview of the story. I basically wanted to make a musical trailer for Fallout Equestria, originally, because this was on the heels of literally just finishing the audiobook after listening to it at work for a month and a half. The Crazed Rambling version, and I've already mentioned him several times, so I'm pretty sure he owes me a check at this point. But, yeah, so after finishing listening to his audiobook version of it, I wanted to just really encapsulate all of the emotions and the generalities of the story together into one song. Especially because, really, except for the hook of radioactive, radioactive, I'm not a fan of a lot of the lyrics in the song, to be honest. Especially the music video. Because if you've never seen the music video, I'm sure you can make a few assumptions about what it looked like. I personally had sort of a Mad Max thing in my mind, especially when it mentions the prison bus. You know, group of survivors trekking over a desert in a prison bus. No, it's a cowboy bar or some other like that. It just is stupid. I don't get it. I hate most music videos out there, and I hate most lyrics for most songs because they're either too dry or commercialized and really general, and it just bugs me. So, in my lyric writing, I like to make a 3-act story, and I really try to define what the story's about, because music is just the raw emotion and feeling. The lyrics are what give it structure, or what give it bearing, or what assign those emotions to a particular story. I guess that's sort of my philosophy on lyrics and music, but, yeah. Anyway, once the actual lyric writing is done, then the actual recording and mixing can be a much more involved process, especially depending on the complexity of the song. I'll compare 2 of my Fallout Equestria songs. Facing the Fallout, for instance, has a lot of supporting vocal tracks for both the chorus and the oohs during the verses and such, so that took a lot more effort to put into mixing it. Making sure that all the vocals sounded good, that they were all more or less in key, and that, for me, involves listening to the updated versions over and over again on a variety of different audio outputs. For me, I try to keep version control with all my songs, and so I'll have files Facing the Fallout -test 20, which is pretty up there. Facing the Fallout took at least 20 or 22 versions. Cloudsdale Girls took quite a few as well, mainly because that was right before they patched my music mixing software, Acoustica Mixcraft, and so there was a bit of a, it would keep crashing, and I'd keep losing file after file, so it was kind of a nightmare, because I'd have to save a ton of files before realizing how the backup system worked. Anyway, so, whereas other songs really only could take 2 or 3 versions, once I have a new version, I'll listen to it on my laptop speakers, I'll listen to it on conventional headphones, like just $20 whatever over-the-ear headphones, I'll listen on buds, I'll listen on my really high-quality Skull Candy buds, I'll listen on my surround sound speaker system, and I'll also listen to it both on my phone and on my car. Because audio mixing is really tricky, and just like any kind of editing or mixing, it's one of those things that's never really done. You just pick a point where you stop. So listening to it on all those different kinds of mediums, I just try to find the perfect medium between it all where it sounds as good as it can on all the different devices, all the different possible ways people would listen to it. And that's what I do. And again, however many versions of that song I make, the test versions, really depends on how complex the vocals or other arrangements are for the song. So, Facing the Fallout took 22 versions, whereas I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire Velvet took only 3. And even then it was just because I had the singing track and the spoken vocal track there in the middle. So, like, two things. Then once the actual song is done, I'll Photoshop together the album art and video artwork, and maybe put together some cool graphics or something for the video, if it's appropriate, if I can do it. The most complex being It Was Okay Eventually, the non-incest version of It'll Be Okay. So, that was fun. Did you start doing music and voice acting before you were a brony? Voice acting is something I've always appreciated, but it's nothing I ever really did much of with my computer or with anything like that, because frankly I didn't have the equipment for it. It wasn't until I started this SkyBolt channel and the whole brony music thing at all that I even thought to get a good microphone and the right software for mixing it. The one exception, of course, being the original What's This Ponies version that I put on my channel, that I'm commemorating with this 2-year anniversary, which was recorded on this microphone and this headset. So that's why the audio quality was crappy. Plus, I mixed it all together with Audacity, I believe, which some people have made good use of. I personally, maybe I didn't know about the more complex features or something, because, it was terrible. So, I'm very happy I got a new microphone and a new music software suite. But that doesn't mean I hadn't done any kind of acting-related things before becoming a brony or doing this whole channel thing. For one thing, I did a lot of theater in high school. I was in this one vaudeville-esque compilation show we did where I actually played Jimmy Durante. Google it. And so that was sort of the introduction to me doing a lot of swinger and that kind of classic vaudeville kind of performance stuff. Then later on that same year, I ended up being Horton in the Seussical the Musical production that we did. So that was silly. Then I performed in the Singing Christmas Tree production at my church for a couple of years, which was this annual massive Christmas theatrical musical production for feeding the homeless. And so it was a big crowd and a lot of fun, a lot of variety from year to year. Not to mention a ton of other random acting opportunities in between it all. Do you play any games? And if so, what kind? Let me see here. I played a lot of Halo over the years. I actually was a big fan of Halo from Halo 2 on when I got an Xbox. I played a lot of Battlefront, BioShock, a little bit of Mass Effect, some Assassin's Creed. I feel like there's one more I'm missing. I can't think of it. Favorite moment and character from Fallout Equestria, or its spin-offs, and please include a spoiler warning! Don't worry, I'm pretty good about not spoiling things. My favorite moments in the story are also related to my favorite character, which is Steelhooves. I personally felt like he had one of the strongest characters in the story. He embodied all of the darker tones of Fallout Equestria in one character, basically. One Metal Ranger shell. He had the strongest ties to the past involving certain characters he was related to in one sense or another. And his first-hand experience of the world before the bombs fell made him, to me anyway, one of the strongest ties to the past that the story had. Even more so than the memory orbs. And overall, I feel like he just made a great foil for the other characters of the main group, and had the best romantical arc in the story. Did you play the Fallout games before or after reading Fallout Equestria? I was already a big Fallout and MLP fan before reading Fallout Equestria. As I've said in the past, I didn't start reading Fallout Equestria until not only it was finished, but the audiobook was finished. I am so bad about actually sitting down and reading that I knew I wanted to wait until the audiobook was done so that I could sit down and listen to it while at work, basically, when I had time for it. Especially in those days, I was so busy with school, homework, outside activities, actual normal work, that I really just didn't have the time for it. So then once Craze Rambling finished his audiobook version, I downloaded it all and started listening. And here I am today. So there you go. Favorite moment, character, DLC, and game for the Fallout series? Well, unfortunately, I still haven't gotten around to actually playing Fallout 1 or 2. It's not that I don't have them either. I actually did download both of them when that GOG website was offering them for free. So I've just been too busy to play them. But for Fallout 3, I'd say that one of my favorite serious moments was when you were a baby, just the 1 year old, right at the beginning of the game, and Liam Neeson, your dad, James. I always call him Liam Neeson. When Liam Neeson, your dad, tells you about your mother and reads the Revelation 21:6 verse. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. For me, that was one of the most powerful moments in the game. It really established the story for what it was going to be, gave you a close connection to your dad and your mom, even though you'd be without both of them for most of the story, and it set up the dream that they both had to heal and restore the wasteland based on their convictions, which is pretty cool. Then my favorite silly moment is when Liberty Prime starts bombing the hell out of the Enclave once you get them working again. Communism is the very definition of failure. Then my favorite DLC from Fallout 3 would probably be Point Lookout. I just loved battling the redneck mutants, holding down the mansion, the Mother Punga quest, the Chinese submarine subplot, and the Necronomicon story that leads you back to the Dunwich building. Overall, I just thought it was a cool DLC. A close second would probably be Broken Steel, just because it expands the game's length. For New Vegas, one of my favorite moments was, again, the opening. The cutscene that establishes Benny and the Courier was just one heck of an inciting action. And, of course, Benny's infamous catchphrase, "Truth is, the game was rigged from the start," is still one of my favorite quotes from Fallout. Which combines nicely with my other favorite moment of the game when you actually kill Benny. Mostly because I'd like to say some kind of one-liner when I did. Consider us even. Apology accepted. Ain't that a kick to the head? Ring-a-ding-ding. The house always wins. Hail Maria, full of grace. And etc. Then my favorite DLC from New Vegas, as hard and frustrating as it was, is probably Dead Money. I just felt that it had not only one of the best stories and voice acting from all the DLC, and also an incredible atmosphere and tone. Especially when you learn the backstory about Sinclair and Vera Keys, finally finding Christine, and putting Father Elijah in his place. But as difficult as it was, the hardest part for me was letting go. And the stupid gold bars. A close second would probably be a close tie between Old World Blues and Lonesome Road. I like them both for their separate individual tones, and I honestly couldn't pick a second between them. They'd both be tied. Basically, I really just didn't care for Honest Hearts, more than anything. If I said your body looks pretty, would you rub it against me? Why, Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me, aren't you? Who is worse, Pony? Generation 3.5 Scootaloo, of course. Ugh. What song would best describe your life? I've always thought of my life more like a playlist, a series of songs describing how I feel from one day or week to the next. Whereas sometimes I could feel like Tiny Tim's Living in the Sunlight.
I'm right here to say when I'm old and grey, I'll be right in my prime. Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.
Other times I could feel more like Slayer's Raining Blood.
Oh man, not cool! This music is so angry! This is killing my buzz! Let's bail on this whole angry scene!
But if I were to put music to my entire life as I remember it and as I feel it's going right now, I'd probably say Alligator Sky by Owl City. It's a really uplifting, happy song because overall I've had a really blessed life. I can't complain about too much. I've been very fortunate, and I feel like I've worked hard with what I've been given, so... Where was I when the rockets came to life and carried you away into the alligator sky? Even though I'll never know what's up ahead, I'm never letting go, I'm never letting go! Describe yourself in one word. Engineer. What? Chicken butt. I like your dark, symphonic, and swing songs. Would you ever try one of Big Bad Voodoo Daddy's songs?
I once met. Smooth talker with an export cigarette.
Maybe. Best Fallout Equestria and Fallout 3 characters. I think we've covered Fallout Equestria, but for Fallout 3 I'd probably say Harkness, because he has a great backstory that would end up setting up for a great plotline for a game that isn't going to get released until the actual Fallout Doomsday date. Dang it, Bethesda! What wasteland virtue do you think you have? You know, I don't know. That's a really introspective kind of question, and I just couldn't pin one, really. It sounds like I'd be self-aggrandizing myself if I picked one, like, oh, I'm the element of loyalty. I'm more loyal beyond anyone else in the wasteland. Or I am the element of honesty, and I will tell you the truth no matter what, even if it hurts you. It just doesn't really feel right to give myself a label like that. I think if I came close to anything, it would probably be perseverance. Not to step on Blackjack's tail or anything that she's gone through over the course of her story, but after reading through some of the quotes, I feel like it's fitting enough. You do everything you can to make up for it, knowing that you'll never succeed in getting rid of the guilt. You devote yourself to spending every second trying to do better, despite the fact that it will never be enough. And you pray with every single good act you do that somehow, when your life is over, that you came close to making up for the wrong you committed. So, I guess that one rang the most true with me. Who is your favorite villain in Fallout Equestria? And if Little Pip had failed to stop them, how do you think Equestria would have turned out? Well, my favorite villain is without a doubt Red-Eye. I love the charismatic leader type of villain the most because I think they're the most interesting, being a cut above just a monster or a violent barbarian.
You see, when it comes right down to it, a good villain is not about getting his or her own way. It's about getting everyone else to follow that way too.
How long have you been doing music prior to the Brony fandom? I've played a plethora of instruments over the years, actually. Besides the standards like keyboard and guitar, and drums. I played a lot of drums growing up. I've also had quite a bit of experience in bass, violin, and banjo. The first song that I rewrote was actually To Ask a Girl to Senior Prom, which I ended up re-recording and posting on my channel a while back. It was a great prom. We even ended up dating for a while. Have you read Fallout Equestria? Have you played any of the Fallout games? Are some of the Fallout Equestria songs that you made going to be in the animated series? Well, considering I'm the voice and music director, I'll be making a ton of music for the series. Original songs, soundtrack and score, and yes, hopefully quite a few parody songs in there as well. Why did you start making songs, and why did you continue to do it? I started rewriting songs originally because I wasn't doing anything musical or theatrical related anymore, because of school and work schedules just getting so busy that I couldn't show up for anything. It was too much of a time commitment, and rewriting songs was something nice and simple, something I could do just from my computer and have fun with it. I could work at my own timing, and it was still a nice break from engineering and math. I really didn't know how far it would go, especially up to this point. I guess I'm still doing it now because even though there's a lot of frustrating things associated with it, I still overall have more fun than not. I don't know when or how that'll change in regards to this particular channel and pony music, but I do know I love singing, voice acting, and music in general, and I think I'll end up doing it for the rest of my life in one form or another. Who's your favorite non-Brony lyricist? Well, if we're talking musicals, then it's going to be either Danny Elfman or Andrew Lloyd Webber. Mainly because I was such a huge fan of Nightmare Before Christmas and Phantom of the Opera. But if we're talking musicals and parodies, then personally, one of my biggest inspirations was Trey Parker and Weird Al Yankovic. I've paid tribute to both of them with my own parodies. Trey Parker of South Park specifically has been a very successful musician, holding now 11 Tony Awards or something for the Book of Mormon, and I haven't even heard that yet, so I'm just going off of the South Park stuff. And Team America World Police, of course. For him, mixing in all of that really solid humor as well as the South Park edge was always very fun for me. And then Weird Al Yankovic, of course, was a huge inspiration for the whole concept of doing parodies in the first place. The way he reinterprets songs to make them funny or apply to totally different situations was always pretty fun for me. Then, one final lyrical inspiration I would probably say is Abney Park. Being one of the most famous steampunk bands, they've done a great job of painting this entire world with a lot of their music. So much so that their songs and this fictional universe that they've created has been turned into 2 novels, as well as a game and a couple other things, I'm pretty sure. So, very good lyric writing and very good music to match. What's your recording setup? Gear, hardware, and software? I produce all of my songs using Acoustica Mixcraft. I feel like it's one of the most fluid and easy to use user interfaces of most music software that I've toyed with, and I just really like it. I've grown accustomed to it. Microphone is my blue Snowball here, so I actually originally ordered a black and silver one, but there was a nightmare dealing with that was broken, and I had to send it back to the blue manufacturers, and their customer service team is just atrocious. It was literally a small technical service nightmare for me. So, except for the fact that their products are very solid and very well produced, their customer service team is terrible. So, definitely if you do get one, and I do recommend that you get either a blue Snowball, or I probably would have gotten a Yeti had I known then what I knew now. It's probably not a huge difference, but definitely get it from a store where you can return it to the store and not have to send it back to the manufacturer. Then beyond that, I make all of my videos using Sony Vegas Movie Studio 12.0. Then I have a variety of instruments which I don't use all the time because I have a pretty good VST selection in Acoustica Mixcraft, but you can see my guitar back in the corner there that I've used for a couple of songs, and then my MIDI keyboard that now I have standing up since I moved to this new apartment, so I can program a lot faster and a lot easier rather than going off of the keyboard on my laptop. And yeah, that's pretty much the bulk of it. Who would you really like to collaborate with, both pony and non-pony? Well, in terms of brony musicians, I personally would love to collaborate with Aviator someday. I think literally it was the second or third brony song I'd ever heard was his Trixie song Second Chances, and it's still one of my favorites by him to this day. So he has a really similar range to me also, based on me singing a lot of his songs in the car while I'm driving to work and whatnot. So I'd love to collaborate with him. I drew a lot of inspiration from him for some of the way he mixes audio, lyrics, story, themes, a lot of things like that too. Just a profound musician, and I'd love the opportunity. I've messaged him a few times, but to no avail yet. So, Aviators, if you're watching, let's collab sometime. It'd be great. Then in terms of non-pony musicians, it'd probably be one of the guys I stated earlier. Trey Parker, Weird Al, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Danny Elfman. Basically, the opportunity to work in more of a larger scale production like that. Really, one of my biggest dreams would be to do all this for a living, which would be just fantastic. For me personally, one of my favorite experiences in brony music so far has been getting to do the lyrics for the L Train's Moonrise Symphonic Metal Opera. I remember first hearing his Season 1 medley a long time ago. Then it was about 6 or 7 months after I first heard that I used his instrumental for The Moon Rises to do my symphonic metal cover thingy. And then, 8 months after that, we ended up working together on that, so it was a really good opportunity. I really love that kind of music, like the energy associated with metal, with the scale and grandeur associated with, like, you know, the operatic side of things, the big symphonic side of things. Like for me, I've been a big fan of Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and I would see them every Christmas when they had a tour in Sacramento, so I just love that kind of music, and it was a very great opportunity to work with him too. Just really nice guy, really solid musician. So yeah, I'd love to one day be able to do more stuff like that with, heck, for a South Park episode, if I could write a song for that, I'd just die. That would be fantastic. The idea of making money or having a whole career built on some kind of creative aspiration would be a real dream of mine. So, yeah. What's your favorite song that you have made, and why? Oh, man. That's a tough one. There's definitely songs that I'm not as happy with as other songs. Like, you know, some songs that I would definitely put in a lower tier just based on the quality or the ability I have to actually sing that kind of music or something like that. But picking a favorite feels different to me. There's so many ways I could... It's so hard to pick just one, you know. But if I had to pick just one, I'd probably go with What's This, Ponies. It's literally been 2 years since I posted the original version with the crappy Walmart headset, and all of this came from that, essentially, in one way or another. Really, I wasn't going to continue on after that, except for one really nice comment left on the video, where a guy looked past the terrible audio quality and did appreciate the lyrics that I wrote for it. So that was sort of like just the extra step I needed to then buy the blue microphone and acoustic Mixcraft so I could not only re-record What's This, but make the season startup for season 3 and every song after that since then. So it's funny. It's like one of those fork in the road moments for life, and now I've been to 5 pony conventions by this point, and I've traveled all over the country and talked with people and made friends from all over the world because of this silly fandom. So yeah, and even in just purely musical terms and not considering all those nostalgia factors, I was very happy with the way those lyrics came out, and luckily I can sing roughly okay as Danny Elfman. So yeah, What's This? Where do you plan on going with your music, and can it include some of us? I don't know what exactly the future holds. One thing I've learned throughout life is that really, even when I try to predict something just a year in advance, it usually ends up interestingly different. So I just keep moving my feet in one direction, and hopefully it works out for the best. And of course, I would love to include anyone I run into along the way. I've made a ton of friends in the fandom that are now pretty good friends in general that I would love to bring along with me if I end up in some kind of more professional setting doing music or singing or whatnot, because they're trustworthy and, you know, I know them and they're very skilled in their own different ways. In fact, for a while, I wanted to ideally put together a band so I could have someone help me produce instrumentals so I could actually sell more of these silly cover things, because more than anything, it's all about time. I come up with a parody idea, and I just want to get the lyric version out there. So that's why I really won't put anything on my Bandcamp unless I fully produce the instrumental myself. So it's not as much as it could be, but like I said, I hope to one day be able to make a solid living off of this. So I wanted to thank you all again for 2,000 and now 2,400 subscribers. I really can't believe how far all of this has come, and to think that I'm celebrating a 2-year anniversary of having this silly creative endeavor of a channel, I'm really happy with how a lot of things have gone. So I've got a lot of plans for the future with a lot more songs, originals, parodies, and a bunch of other stuff in the works, so we'll see what happens. Should be quite the fun ride. And finally, here's to a good Season 5, because there are no breaks on the crazy train.